I'm realizing I got to update that show opening graphic, at least on the YouTube side. Our TikTok account was shadow banned for reasons I can't possibly begin to understand because all I do is talk about fantasy basketball. We got to get that Blue Sky one in there instead. That's a problem for after the show, though, isn't it, friends? Yes, it certainly is. Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I'm Dan Bespris. This is your Wednesday morning, Tuesday recap edition of the show. We had a nice, chunky 11-game Tuesday to cover, and we'll get to that momentarily. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen, including odds on everything from football to the NBA and college basketball, NHL, UFC. Head to BetOnline today, and don't forget, this is new, to use promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, B-L-E-A-V, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. Here's the quick hitter from yesterday, and then we'll deep dive the box score. This is what I like to call the TLDR recap, something we've added to our social media arsenal. Mark Williams came back yesterday. You should stash him. You should be streaming Nick Richards while Mark Williams works his way up to full tilt. Kevin Durant hurt his ankle. Malcolm Brogdon hurt his knee. Darius Garland hurt his head. Bub Carrington and Ty Jerome were kind of sneaky speculative ads on that last news. The Mavs are healthy again, so their streamers are in the toilet. Malik Monk might be the waiver wire ad of the month, and Brandon Pajemski gets a resounding bleh from me because, well, we'll get into that in a little bit. So that's your quick hitters from yesterday. I know you guys seem to like when we open the show by just diving straight into stuff like that, so that's what I did. But I do want to break down the entire boxes from yesterday, so let's go ahead and jump on over to that. In the meantime, please do follow me on Twitter at Dan Bespris, on the new Blue Sky at Old Man Squad. Instagram wouldn't even let me post a video yesterday. I don't know what I've done to these places to offend them, but that's Old Man Squad Fantasy, should you feel so inclined to follow over there. Hit that like button. Do it now if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe no matter how you're taking in the content as we continue to try to push this thing to new heights, and drop a 5-star review. Here is yesterday's set of boxes. Philly at Charlotte. Sixers won a ball game. Paul George was pretty good, actually, in this one, and now he's going to get a day off for rest. Tyrese Maxey, obviously, a start as well. It's beyond those guys where things get a little bit hairy for Philadelphia. And with the day off for Paul George today, it gets a little bit, I guess, sort of less hairy in that the streamers become more playable. For one night, you could definitely play Jared McCain. You can play Kelly Oubre. You can play Gershon Yabusele. These guys are all playable for one night because it's just Tyrese Maxey, and that means some other collection of players is going to have to soak up the 30-some-odd shots that Paul George and Joel Embiid are leaving by not being in there. McCain, you figure, is going to take probably the most of those. Oubre's got a shot to take, I don't know, 10 to 12 of them. Yabusele, they just don't have that many options for what to do at the center position, so he'll do something while he's out there. But in looking at this ball game and try to game plan for what's down the line for Philly, I don't think that I go beyond the stars when two of them are in, and that includes Jared McCain, who did have 2 steals yesterday to float his line, but 22 minutes for him just isn't enough. And then Oubre and Yabusele, those are guys you're probably not playing as the team gets healthy anyway. I know Gershon had 12 rebounds and 4 assists. That's always great. But he's more like a top 140, 150 kind of fill-in since Embiid has been out. That's filler-level guy. Oubre's filler level. And if McCain is really going to come off the bench and have his minutes somewhat limited, that puts him in filler territory as well. But again, you can hold him for this ball game because Paul George is out. The Hornets side, this was really interesting. Mark Williams made his return. He played 9 minutes, which is nothing. And all that tells us is they're going to bring him along very slowly. In the interim, Nick Richards is a guy that belongs on rosters. He had 22 and 14. I mean, honestly, that's just a hell of a ball game for Richards. And I would assume he's pretty heavily rostered by now, but not overwhelmingly so. It's at 42%, but it was only at 32 before yesterday's big ball game. This has a timestamp on it. At some point, Mark Williams is going to ramp up to at least half the minutes at center, and then those guys either are going to cancel each other out or Mark Williams is going to overtake him. But in the meantime, you want to be streaming the crap out of Nick Richards. He's a fantastic streamer right now. Brandon Miller is getting all the usage he can handle with no LaMelo Ball. Josh Green, no. Cody Martin, KJ Simpson was kind of interesting here with 9 assists because he outplayed Vasilija Micic. And Tijan Solon had 10 and 10, but you're not going to rely on the rebounding from him. The big story, it's not even a big story. It's like a medium story for New Orleans, or not New Orleans. What the hell's wrong with me? This is Charlotte, New Orleans Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets. I'm sorry, guys. My brain just decided to wind the clock back like 8 years. Is it more than that now? I don't know. Between COVID and having 2 children, I can't tell 1 year from the next, but I can definitely tell you about fantasy basketball. KJ Simpson is someone to keep an eye on. Not because he had 9 assists in this ball game, but just because I've been trying to preach to you guys that Vasilija Micic, he had an opportunity last year when LaMelo Ball was out towards the end of the season, and other guys went out as well. And even then, he couldn't crack the top 100. So I don't know what would make us think that he's going to do it now with Brandon Miller free to do more. And then at some point, I don't know how long LaMelo's going to be out, but Miles Bridges is also going to show up at some point here. Micic just isn't that good. That's the big problem. And he'll have some games where he can stream you a few assists. That's ultimately going to be the reason you'd play him in some formats. But he's just not for me. I said it yesterday. I'll say it today. This game, it's easier to say it after than the last one. I don't think that anything's about to flip. I don't think that KJ Simpson's going to take his starting job. That doesn't feel likely. But he did outplay him in this ball game. And so if those 2 players are kind of fighting each other every night, well, then neither one ends up. Because an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind, ladies and gentlemen. Washington got steamrolled by the Cavaliers, to nobody's surprise. Corey Kispert got hurt. Keyshawn George got hurt. Malcolm Brogdon left with a knee thing. Who the hell's left? Well, glad you asked. Bub Carrington's left. And this game was over early, but it is notable that Bilal Coulibaly still played 31 minutes and Bub played 36. That's just a big, glaring highlight level point of these are just the guys the Wizards are going to play regardless of what the box score looks like in a given night. Now, Coulibaly has gone ice cold from the field after starting the year very hot. His field goal percent down to 47. He's fallen outside the top 100. But those 35 minutes a game are hard for me to ignore. If you can, try to hold on Bilal. Try. I understand if you can't. I know it's been a difficult one lately. But the trajectory here, even if it's like, started hot, got really cold, the trajectory for him just as a what are you doing on a night-to-night basis is still a good one. The minutes are high, which means he's going to get some number of rebounds and assists and steals and blocks just by being out there. And then the other stuff you kind of hope just slowly gets better. And it's apparently going to be a vicious sine wave on the way to get there. But in any event, you're holding Alex Sarr. That one's, I think, probably an easier one for me to convince you of because everybody's seen the big games. JV is a soft hold. He's certainly doing enough with Kyle Kuzma out. What I don't know exactly what to do with is Malcolm Brogdon, because what wasn't totally clear, and they haven't really made it clear yet, was this Brogdon leaving because his knee was sore and they were losing by 30? Or was this Brogdon leaving just because his knee was sore? Probably a little bit of a combination. So there's a chance that Bub Carrington doesn't end up as a massive winner here. But I can't overlook the fact that Malcolm Brogdon is extraordinarily injury prone. And if there really is any kind of actual knee soreness going on, he'll miss a game or 2 or 3 or whatever. And in that instance, if Bub Carrington's playing 36 minutes, then he's going to need to be in your lineup. So I picked up Bub in a lot of places. It's more of a speculative ad because we don't know if Brogdon's going to miss time, but it's one that I think could really work out nicely if Brogdon does miss time. And even if he doesn't, these injuries to Kispert and Keyshawn George are going to kind of force more down to Carrington anyway. Darius Garland left after getting hit in the head. I think he had a collision with JV, if I'm remembering correctly on that one. He did not return. We don't have an update on him either, but if he hits the concussion protocols, you know who could be a sneaky ad here, and he didn't even play in this ball game, is Ty Jerome. We talked about how he's been the man when either Garland or Donovan Mitchell is out. Garland might be out, and the nice thing here is that because Jerome didn't play, people might not realize that he's the guy that's going to step in, and someone's going to go pick up Sam Merrill and Isaac Okoro, and we are back here going, yes, but Ty Jerome was only out because he had a cold or a flu or something, so he could potentially beat Garland back. That's, again, more speculative. I don't think we can do anything there until we know more on Darius Garland, but it could be like the first Cavaliers fantasy note in I don't even know how long. Milwaukee beat up on Detroit, just had another worldly three-point shooting game. Sometimes that type of stuff happens in the NBA, and everybody got some. Taurean Prince hit 4, Dame hit 5, Gary Trent hit 3, Portis hit 4, AJ Green hit 3, Andre Jackson hit 2, Brook Lopez only 1, oddly enough, and this game was over early as well. No notes. You're not picking up all these bucks on the heels of one good three-point shooting game. That would be lunacy. Nice to see Tobias Harris have a better ball game. That pushed him back up into kind of like the 7th, 8th round neighborhood. It's not as good as what we wanted this year. That's 100% true. And the big issue is that I need this dude doing more on offense. Stop bowing to frickin' Tim Hardaway. Please. It's not going to happen anytime soon because Tobias is not the aggressive sort. But he'll just plod along and you don't have to worry about it too much and just kind of hope that it continues to kind of trend upward as the percentages creep back towards where we assume they will be. Jalen Durant had some foul issues in this one. It was actually a better ball game beyond the foul stuff with 3 blocks, a steal, but the 20 minutes are tough, and the minutes are probably not getting higher than about 25, 26, even if there wasn't foul trouble, because they keep their flip-flopping he and Isaiah Stewart and just giving everybody a chance to try to play defense. So it's going to be tough. I'm going to issue the same edict I have a bunch of times, which is if you have Jalen Durant, wait for a good ball game. And this one, I guess, classifies, but probably wait for a big one where he goes, for like 14 and 15. And then try to move him for some safer top 100 type of center. Someone still is going to want to take a chance on him. It's just not me. Cade continues to fall. Got off to that rip-roaring start. And obviously there's, he still holds a ton of value in a lot of different formats, but the bad percentages and the super high turnovers, he's kind of peeling his way towards more of a points league guy, but you could get away with, punt turnover or punt field goal or something like that. If you're not punting those, then you should probably try to sell Cade, and you can still get a lot for him because he's putting up gigantic counting stats. Also, did I or did I not warn you that the Malik Beasley crash was going to be an ugly one? Someone on Twitter tried to convince me that he had just, taken over the job. Guys, come on. We can't be falling for this stuff. This is like 7 consecutive years with Beasley and the same crap. Mo Wagner, survived the Knicks beating up on Orlando in this ballgame. Franz played 39 minutes. I don't really know why, but I guess we're not going to argue with it because he put up a huge line. No Goga. He was a late scratch with an ankle injury. Wendell Carter Jr. got the start at center and then just immediately got run over by Mo Wagner. Yeah. First of all, Wendell Carter Jr. is not a good fantasy player. We've been down this road 1,000 times. Mo Wagner is a better fantasy player, but he's not a good defender, and so he gets yanked around a bunch, and sometimes they'll throw him in there if they need to play catch-up and need some offense, and he was a +7 when he was on the court, so by all accounts, better, but some of that was late when the game was largely decided. If this lineup, if this crapperoo is what we see in the next one from Orlando, I would still rather try Carter over Mo, unless we find out they're going to flip-flop and Wagner starts, but I don't think that's about to happen. I would not have the confidence to play Mo Wagner in the next ball game, despite the fact that this one was an excellent performance. I just wouldn't, because we know what happens with these centers. And frankly, we might see Goga back for their next ball game anyway, and then all of that becomes kind of a moot point, which would make our lives easier. Knicks are basically a start the starters team. Deuce McBride had a pretty good ball game here, but that's unreliable at best. Mikal Bridges, we called him kind of a semi-buy low. He's moved up about 15, 20 slots since then, and now he's not as much of a buy low anymore, but let's just keep moving. Hey, Tyrese Halliburton had a good game on the road, guys. It's almost like modern medicine can figure out a way to help a guy who's having issues with his back sleeping in hotel beds. Go figure, different ways that he can learn how to sleep, different things he can put in the bed to help. Like, I don't know what they've done, if anything, or maybe he's just getting better, or maybe it was all something that got blown out of proportion to begin with. I don't know. All I know is that I had and continue to have faith that a very, very good basketball player will find a way to be very, very good. Go figure. He's up to number 35 on the season now. So whatever possible buy lows you may have had on Halliburton are likely done. I feel like he's been pretty good the last 2 weeks in particular, if I'm thinking right. Yeah, second rounder over that stretch. And that's only because the steals are a little bit low. And then there's some guys that are in front of him that probably don't stay there super long term. Either way, it's been good. Complaints have stopped on the Twitters. And so I think we're okay. Interesting little footnote here. So Andrew Nembhard played 19 minutes, and you guys know I have zero faith in his fantasy game. TJ McConnell got 24 again. And I'm sort of like squinting my eyes at it. I know Ben Shepard's still not back, and Aaron Nesmith is still not back. And I know that this line from McConnell wasn't very good, but typically 24 minutes is enough for him. So McConnell's someone that I would consider as kind of like we don't really know how he got there, but he's basically an injury play kind of guy. Because it's not like one dude being out has been the difference for him. It's just a bunch of guys. And he's not putting up big numbers, so I don't know why I'm focusing on him. But 24 minutes is enough if you need a combination of field goal percent, steals, and assists, which is kind of like a fun, weird little combination, and many of us need it. Ochai Agbaji continues to post these nice, efficient lines with no Grady Dick. I keep looking at it going, do I actually have the confidence to play this dude? And the answer is I probably don't. But maybe you do? I don't know. I'd probably pass, but I wouldn't kill you if you tried. Otherwise, you're just playing the regulars. Utah at Oklahoma City. This game was over pretty quickly as well, but most of the Jazz actually got close to starters minutes. And right now, you're basically starting the starters for Utah. Of course, Keontae George is with a strict punt, field goal, turnover build. He is yucky this year. I don't think he's had more than about 1 to 2 games in a row where he's been inside the top 200. Colin Sexton continues to do literally just enough to stay on rosters. He's number 155. That's filler level. He's trended up a little bit lately, but he just doesn't do very many things. Turnovers were the problem in this ballgame, and actually, by and large, turnovers have been a problem for him this year at 3.2 assists, 2.5 turnovers. That's just not good enough. But hey, at least Walker Kessler is blocking the crap out of people. At least we got that. On that OKC side, Isaiah Hartenstein had a quiet ball game, but we're not going to worry about that. Cason Wallace, once again, had a nice steals total, and that's basically what he is. And then, beyond that, you're not about to take a shot on Isaiah Joe or Aaron Wiggins, are you? I will say that finally, reality has come for poor Lou Dort, who's about to fall outside the top 100. And we knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. He got off to a hot start, so we can not worry about that anymore. Memphis lost at Dallas. Santi Aldama is working some sort of sorcery this year, and he's shooting 52% from the field. But here's the thing, guys. We know better. We know better. We know Santi Aldama is not a guy who shoots 52% from the field over an entire season. That type, we've not that he's been in the NBA for a while or anything, and this is only his 4th season, but he's never been above 47%. Certainly not with I guess the stat profile, his shots are coming a little bit closer. He's also at a career high 78% at the free throw line. The rebounds, the assists, the steals, the blocks, all that stuff, we know that he can put up those types of counting stats. But the percentages right now have not been a negative yet. And that's the real key for him, because typically they're both bad. And that was the reason to stay away. It begs the question, is Aldama about to hit the skids, or is Santi just a little bit better this year? My guess is he's due for a poor direction mean reversion. So if you're streaming him, know that you're kind of holding a lit match in your hand. And sure, you may have a few seconds, games in this case, that's the metaphor, until the flame gets down to your fingertips. But also, it might be farther down the match and we just don't know it yet. So I'm not going Aldama because I think we're about to run out of juice there. Desmond Bane had 19 points on 14 shots. He's going to slowly come around here, guys. You better buy low while you can. So for me, it's just Ja, Bane, and JJJ. Those are the only Grizzlies that I trust. Dallas is getting healthy again. Kyrie had a bad ball game, but we're not going to worry about that because he's Kyrie. Luka had a good ball game, and he pushed himself up into the sort of mid-late first round now as he continues to climb the board. PJ Washington is a fifth round value right now. That's despite the bad free throw shooting yesterday. He's playing his ass off. It doesn't matter, though, because with the Mavs getting healthy and Klay Thompson's minutes were low, it'll ramp up, but I don't care. He's not a guy I'm playing when this team is healthy anyway. All that we now can say is don't worry about the streamers anymore. I don't care that Dinwiddie had 16 points. He played 24 and a half minutes. That's the number you need to be looking at. The only guys in the Mavs you can play when they're fully healthy are Luka, Gafford, Lively, PJ, Kyrie. 4 of the 5 starters and Gafford off the bench. You're not going Klay because he's been terrible, as we warned you he would be. You're not going Grimes. You're not going Dinwiddie. You're not going Najee Marshall, who's been out a long time with that illness. Something bad. Maybe he's got the walking pneumonia that's going around these days. That's what the kids call it. Victor Wembanyama had a horrible first half, kind of salvaged this game, which, I mean, whatever. He's Wemby. You're not going to complain. He's the number 2 player in fantasy, but this was a down ball game for him. Luckily, the Spurs are getting healthy. Jeremy Sohan, 14 and 12 in his first game back. He's a punt free throw ad, unquestionably a punt free throw ad. Stephon Castle is going to slowly trend down just in what he's allowed to do on a night-to-night basis. Julian Champagny is almost definitely going to be a drop with both Vassell, who kicked butt yesterday, and Sohan back. And I would assume that one of those two guys takes Champagny's starting job relatively soon. So what you're doing with the Spurs now is pretty straightforward. Chris Paul's a start, Wemby's a start, Vassell's a start, and Sohan is a punt free throw start. That's as far as you go. The rest of these guys are schedule play level only. Kevin Durant turned an ankle in this ball game. He did not come back, and that sucks because this is kind of unusual actually for KD. Usually his stuff is more, got hit in the side of the knee kind of thing. Let's hope it's short. I mean, it didn't seem like it was a awful thing because he was in the locker room for a while. We were waiting to find out if he might come back. His team was playing well, so perhaps that played a role in it. I would expect a couple of missed ball games, though, so that's crummy. And while he's out, is there anything you really want to do here? I mean, we've seen the Royce O'Neal low upside experience, so probably not. The Suns went Iguodala to start at center and brought Plumlee off the bench, which was also super odd, but maybe this was sort of Wemby related. I would keep an eye. I'm more interested in the use of Nurkic stuff because he continues to miss time and then he tries to play for a day and then he misses time again. That's kind of what's happening with Beal also. And for the Suns, I guess it's good they got off to a good start this year at 12 and 8, but this team is badly banged up. They got to find a way to get healthy. I guess the good news is they have a little bit more depth this year, but so far they have not been good without Kevin Durant, and they might miss him for a couple of ball games. Fantasy-wise, keep an eye on who starts at center. If it's Plumlee, I think I would start him. If it's Iguodala, I don't think I would. Tyus Jones, you start. Obviously, Booker and Beal, when they're in, you're starting those guys. Grayson Allen is the other guy to sort of keep one half of an eye on just in case he gets a bump. Because he actually does have the fantasy game to maybe earn himself an ad, but definitely not yet. Nuggets scored, I believe, the last 10 points of this game and beat the Warriors 119-115. Nuggets are getting healthy, so they're now 11 and 8. Warriors have lost 5 games in a row after a blistering start to the year, and Warriors Twitter is basically talking about how much they miss DeAnthony Melton. Remember when Memphis had that dude and basically just let him go? Well, he's out for the year, so that sucks. Wiggins is a hold. Kuminga started because Draymond Green was out, so don't get super excited there. Brandon Podziemski was on his way seemingly to a decent ball game and then made like 3 consecutive boneheaded plays at the beginning of the fourth quarter and got yanked for the duration. And that's a reason that he was a speculative ad and not a must add a couple days back, because it looked like he was starting to do a little bit better. And then he crapped down his leg. I'm not, as you guys know from watching or listening to this show, I am not at all a Brandon Podziemski guy. I did pick him up when it looked like maybe he was going to get a better shot here in the short term. And I don't know that we could give up entirely, but I have no problem if you dropped or Devin didn't add to begin with. I think my stance on Podziemski right now is if you can't get your hands on like Bub Carrington, he was probably the most interesting thing to come out of earlier in this card, then you could still just squat on Podziemski for another ball game. I'm not playing him in Roto, and at any day, Buddy Hield could heat back up again, although that hasn't happened in a while. But for now, it's one of those things where it's like, he's going to be my first cut if someone comes along that I want. But I'm not just going to, like, is there anybody out there in fantasy that just drops players without a corresponding ad? What are you, some sort of psychopath? Nikola Jokic is just a freaking cheat code at this point. He's so far out in front of everybody else on a per-game basis. It's truly insane. If you have him on your team, you're likely in the top 3 of your league, and you almost haven't had to do anything else. Nuggets are kind of back to a start-the-starters mode. Christian Brown was meh in this ball game, but generally he's been fine. Aaron Gordon, we'll see if he can pick up where he left off with those crazy percentages. I do think as Gordon gets ramped up, he probably profiles as more of a sell high, but in any event, nothing to worry about there. Houston their coach and their center got ejected with just a minute or two to play, but the game was basically decided at that point. There's nothing to do with this. Van Vliet had a down game. Dylan Brooks had a down game. Amen Thompson had a down game. All the guys with Houston, you're just like, if you were holding before, you're holding again. Kings, you can also start the starters, including Keegan Murray. I get a lot of questions about Keegan Murray. I didn't draft him anywhere, and we tried to steer you away from him because it seemed almost a guarantee that DeMar DeRozan was going to hurt him in a big way. But I also think that his field goal percent is going to get better, and he's probably the best defender on the Kings, so his minutes are not about to go anywhere. So not that Keegan Murray is like a buy low, because what are you going to give up for the guy ranked 117th? Like, what the person that has him, what are they going to want back? I don't know. Could you give up? Would you give up Draymond Green? That's a wash. Everything in there is a wash. Looking at the names on the board, none of these guys would even get the job done. JV, maybe. Maybe that's like the only name. Benedict Mathurin, who's been so good with Neesmith out. I don't know if he's ever going to come back. Julian Champagny, if somebody thinks he's going to continue to play well. Some maniac thinks he's going to keep his job with Sohan and Vassell around. I don't know. It feels like it's hard to get Keegan Murray because whatever you're willing to give up is also not going to be very good, so it probably won't move the needle. But he is a little bit of a buy low. And then everybody else did what you'd want. Malik Monk basically ran a point for the Kings. He's been amazing since getting inserted into the starting lineup, and he's held the job with DeMar back, so let's just keep on going. Is this the last game on the card? I think it is. Clippers defense has been really, really good this year. They're 14-9, and we still haven't heard hide nor hair of, yeah, that's right, I use that expression, of Kawhi Leonard, who at some point is just going to surface, and the Clippers are going to be extremely nebulous and covert about it, but he's going to pop up, and I truly don't know when the hell that's going to be, but it's going to turn Norman Powell into a bit of a pumpkin. But Powell's amazing right now, and we'll get to let's just do the Clippers first. Norm had 30 points in 25 minutes. This is on a games cap, or a minutes cap, I should say. His efficiency this year has been otherworldly, and it won't last forever. He's number 44, hitting 4 3-pointers a game. It's going to come down, and if or when Kawhi shows up, his usage is going to come way down, and he doesn't have a buffer of rebounding or passing or anything else to sort of support his value. So see if you can get like a top 70 guy for Norman Powell after a big ball game like this. I wouldn't worry too much about anything else we saw with the Clippers, other than to point out again how bad Ivica Zubac has been at the free throw line. I did not, and I don't think many folks thought he was going to be a punt free throw guy this year, but he really has become one, and that's super upsetting. As far as Portland goes, Jeremy Grant had a good enough game for you to try to sell. Sell while you can. Denny Avdia had 15 points, but I don't care because he only played 23 minutes. He is trending to a drop with Jeremy Grant back. Shaden Sharp actually hit more than 50% of his field goals, but he's a punt field goal guy. Tumani Kamara's schedule play. Avdia is also a schedule play if you wanted to go that way. Delano Banton, also, I guess, a little bit of a schedule play, at least while Scoot is out. And then Anthony Simons was someone that luckily we avoided like the plague because of how early he was getting drafted, and he's been god awful. Whew, there you go. Wrap it up, B. We managed to get through the recap in a half an hour. That's pretty good. I want to try to do more of these shows in this length of time. We'll have a secondary show coming up today. It's going to be a special trade show. I haven't done one of those so far this year. Not a buy low, sell high. I'm going to be looking at some of my favorite trades that people have pulled off in fantasy leagues so far this year. I put out a tweet on it. Let me see if I can pull that up. Oh my God, there's been a lot of submissions. Oh no, what have I done? I've created a monster. All right, well, this is what it looks like if you guys want to go find it. I didn't put this one on Blue Sky because I don't want to have to look at two different places. Sent at 8:52 this morning. That's Pacific time. If you guys want to go submit something, you can do that in the replies to that tweet. I will be looking at my favorites. I don't know how many, actually. I haven't decided that because I don't know how long I'm going to talk about each one. If I spend 3 minutes on each trade, maybe I'll do like 10 of them. But if I spend 5 minutes, then what am I going to do? 5, 6, 7 trades instead? In any event, send some really compelling trades over. We'll talk about some of those. It should be a fun show. I'll pick a side, but it's more about breaking it down and like, what does it mean for the different teams involved? And why do we get so caught up in this idea of who won a trade when it's quite conceivable that everybody won a trade, because a lot of it's built on what teams look like before and afterwards. All right. Find me on Twitter at Dan Besbris. You can see the label on your screen there. It's DANBESBRIS, Old Man Squad over on the new Blue Sky Network. Like, rate, subscribe. Check out our partners at Bet Online and our partners at the Believe Network. I'm Dan for Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, and I'll see you guys in just a little bit with episode 2 today. Thanks so much for watching, everybody.